Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monacelli with another episode. And today, my guest is a Renaissance man, a true Renaissance man. That's the only way I can describe him in a few words. Tom Cronin. Say hello to our guest, Tom.
Hey, it's great to be here. That is the first time I've been introduced as a Renaissance man, so I'll
Well,
take it for sure.
good. I would. It was a compliment, and he's speaking to us from Australia. So there's quite a time difference, but there's no time lag, it seems. Now, what is he on about? Tom spent 20. You have to follow me with this because there's a meandering road here. Tom spent 26 years in finance markets as one of Australia's leading bond and swap brokers. And I immediately saw a tennis game. Boom, 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 with a bond and swap. So we'll have to, I don't want you to talk about that, but not all of us know what a swap broker is. He discovered meditation in the early stages of his career, which is interesting. When the anxiety and chaos he was experiencing had hit a crisis point, and it completely transformed his life, his world, both personally and professionally. He's the founder of the Stillness Project, which is a global movement to inspire 1 billion people to sit in stillness daily. And, before I go on, this is a real challenge for someone like me who is constantly on the move. So I understand where you're coming from. He's passionate about reducing stress and chaos in people's lives. He's his ongoing work in transformational leadership coaching and corporate training has seen him working with some of the top companies in the world, like Amazon, Qantas, USB, and Coca-Cola. He's spoken on stage at conferences and events like Ad News Summit, AFES, Wanderlust, and so many more. And he has six published books, a meditation app, and produced the hit film, The Portal. Now, I'm going to start from the last. Is that okay with you, Tom?
Go for it. Yeah,
okay, so
what's go anywhere where you go.
What's The Portal all about?
Yeah, I wanted to showcase to the world the power of meditation and mindfulness. And we were going to showcase it not through men in white lab coats talking about the science of meditation, but to show it through personal stories. So we filmed 6 very diverse stories that have all been through crisis.
Well, six people.
6 people's stories, and how they had been through crisis. They've been through immense challenges. Some people, one of them had suffered an extreme stroke. One had broken her back in a big jump that was about to go to the Olympics. One was a Vietnamese refugee that was contemplating suicide. So very diverse stories. And they overcame their tragedies, their challenges, their difficulties using mindfulness and meditation. So The Portal is a film and book experience that takes you along an incredibly beautiful emotional journey of these very beautiful stories and shows how meditation is a powerful force to help us transform and grow.
Mm-hmm. So you have your own family, wife, and children, and all of that. And so when this crisis hit you, were you with that? Were you in a context of a family life still?
Yeah, it was going back many years. It was about 26 years ago that I had what would be considered technically a nervous breakdown. So I was sent to doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, put on medication, suicide watch. Was in a pretty bad way. I was with my partner at the time, who's now my wife. I since then have had 2 children. So it was pre-children. And it was a real game changer when I found meditation and started to transform my life in a big way.
When you hit bottom, you can't, you can only look up. Okay. And
that's right. Yeah.
We've all been there. And it's very common, as a matter of fact, but what's not common is the way you come out of it. Have you left your bond and swap business behind? And I'm joking, I'm laughing about it, but please tell us, what is a swap broker?
Yeah, it's an instrument or a sort of a financial product that people trade. So we trade shares in companies, we trade mortgage-backed securities, we trade bonds, which are government bonds, corporate bonds, semi-government bonds, and swaps is also a financial instrument for that you can actually buy and sell.
Okay, and now today you have nothing more to do with that business?
All gone. Well and truly previous lifetime ago now.
Are you telling us the truth?
I can absolutely, if there was a Bible and I swear on it, I would be swearing on that. Yeah, for sure. That's my world now is coaching and meditation teaching.
Why I ask is because I recently met a gentleman from the UK, and he told me, he said, about 25 years ago, my daughter came home with a CD when we had CDs then. And she was in university, and it was all about the financial market and how to trade and how to invest. And I have made my life doing that, and he loves it. And I thought to myself, well, is it possible to love that kind of work where you sit? And because the way he described it is what you are describing in terms of meditation and stillness, because he said to me, you have to be patient, you have to wait, and you have to see and understand. And most people don't do that. Is he crazy, or does that sound familiar to you? Or is that something that could have helped you back then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world's greatest hedge fund manager and trader, a man called Ray Dalio from Bridgewater Associates, is managing $190 billion worth of assets. And he tweeted the key ingredient to whatever success he's had is meditation. So meditation gives us greater clarity, greater insight, and greater intuition into making better decisions.
Tom, I know that there are many forms of meditation. There are many speeds of meditation. There are many flavors of meditation. Is that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an app called Insight Timer. I think it's like 20,000 different meditations.
Is it your app?
No, it's another app called Insight Timer, and they have I think something like 10,000 meditations on there. So I put meditation into 4 categories, but there's many different ways to meditate.
And you have an app here that I spoke about, a meditation app, and you just said you group them in 4 different. Can you, do you want to give us sort of a little peek into that?
Yeah. So
and
the 4 categories of
what's the name of the app?
Well, the app at the moment is it's taking a technological break technical break. But there are 4 different types of meditation that I tend to compartmentalize all meditations into. Is we have contemplation meditation. That's where we're being guided. We're contemplating our chakras or gratitude or visualizations, intentions. So we have activity in the mind. We're thinking. We have concentration meditations. That's where we're concentrating on one particular point. We're trying to focus the mind on the breath or the third eye or a candle. So it's about trying to force the mind to focus on one thing. And the mind doesn't want to do that. So it requires a lot of discipline, and it's quite uncomfortable. But most people with a concentration meditation would be focusing on the breath. And then we have chanting meditations. That's where we might be chanting out loud, like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or
whatever,
things like that. And then we've got the transcending meditations, which is what I teach and what I've been practicing. And that's things like Vedic meditation or TM or primordial sound technique.
And what is that? How is that different from the other 3?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about the transcending meditation, which is the one that I have chosen to use and the one that I chose to teach because of its effectiveness and its simplicity. It's incredibly potent and effective, but very simple. And we use a particular primordial vibration or sound called a mantra. And that mantra has a quality in it to take the mind from the external world where it naturally goes due to its lure for excitation into the inner world where it moves away from excitation into de-excitation. And it's such a compelling proposition for the mind to follow the lure of this mantra, this sound, that eventually it becomes so close to the sweet nectar and bliss of pure consciousness. That's where there's no thought, that it spontaneously surrenders the mantra and it transcends. The mind will transcend at that point.
Okay, so you said it takes you to pure consciousness. Is that what I heard that right?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Now this opens a can of worms for me. I had an interview. I interviewed a guest who was all about consciousness, and we agreed together in saying that you could talk until, there's the expression, the American expression, until the cows come home about consciousness, and no one will ever agree. Can I ask you, and I know this is this is a terrible thing, but what is your take on consciousness? Your feelings today? I know that will change in future probably, but what is consciousness for Tom Cronin?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to get clear on what type of consciousness you're talking about, because we have the thinking conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind, and then we have the pure conscious mind. So we need to make sure we have this sort of almost like an adjective beforehand to describe the consciousness that we're talking about. So pure consciousness is conscious awareness that is not having any form of thinking in the field of consciousness. So it's like the blue sky with no clouds in it whatsoever.
Okay.
Now, the thinking conscious mind is the mind of being awake, and I'm obviously awake, I'm conscious, but I'm having thoughts that are continuously and consistently moving across that field of my conscious awake mind. And so why we call it pure conscious, in that it doesn't have any polluting thought processes in that field of awareness. And it's like saying the blue sky is always there. It's just that more often than not, there's clouds in it. And those clouds will change the nature and the quality or the structure of the sky. And so now we have clouds in the sky as opposed to sky. And so pure consciousness is conscious awareness where there's just awareness, just presence in this moment. There's nothing else but pure awareness in this moment. And there's no thoughts. And as soon as a thought appears, now the thought will disturb or change the nature of pure consciousness. It's now almost polluting it in some way by putting a thinking process over the top of pure consciousness awareness.
Okay.
So until we access pure consciousness, we call this in Sanskrit Turiya. Until we access Turiya, we're going to have a very limited experience of what life truly is, because it's going to be affected or influenced by your thinking mind. And that's not a true reflection of what life is.
Okay, I'll accept that as given. I might come back to that. Why did you choose this transcendental form of meditation for your work?
Look, I'd done a lot of research into meditation. I tried so many different techniques. A lot of them I found very wishy-washy. They weren't really getting to the point. They were very uncomfortable. And I didn't really find that I was getting a lot of benefits out of it.
Yeah.
The science, first and foremost, that was supporting this particular style of meditation was beyond any other form of meditation that I was researching. It was quite phenomenal amount of science and studies that were backing the incredible impact that it was having. Secondly, there was simplicity in the technique. The technique is incredibly simple and incredibly blissful and charming. It was very easy for me to go, well, I actually like doing that because it's very enjoyable. There's a lot of bliss in the process. And finally, the main thing that really, I think, was the sealer in the deal was that by simple, pure experience, it was phenomenally transformational. It turned my life around.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So the main thing that I noticed within the first few days was my ability to fall asleep. I had the most chronic insomnia, which was off the charts, insane. Its capacity to move the body out of the sympathetic nervous system state and into the parasympathetic nervous system state through the repetition of that mantra and putting yourself into pure consciousness. The level of physiological rest is 4 times deeper than sleep and much, much deeper than any other form of meditation. So that accessibility to that level of depth in physiological rest and activation of the parasympathetic nervous system was reversing a lot of my addictions, my anxiety, my insomnia, my depression. We can't really treat depression whilst we have a stressed nervous system and physiology, because the biochemical makeup will mean that you're depleted of the biochemicals of serotonin and oxytocin, which are the biochemicals we need to actually not feel depressed. If we don't have those biochemicals in our body and we have lots of cortisol and adrenaline, by default, we will feel depressed.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Tom. You're talking about biochemicals. And what do you mean?
Biochemicals.
Oh, so, okay. Biochemicals. Okay. Yeah. I didn't get the O there. Okay, sorry.
I speak too quickly as an Aussie, and we drop things all the time. Like we try to shorten everything as much as possible. So biochemical is a biological chemical in the body.
All right. Now we've danced around a lot of different topics, about your work. And at the very end, I will ask you to just give us a list of all of those books that you've written, because it's important. But we have sort of scratched the surface on what spirituality is when we talk about meditation, and the notion or construct of God. Now, they are linked, perhaps, but can we separate them? And can I ask you to address spirituality as not disjointed from meditation, but what is spirituality today?
Such a good question. I think we've got to take it into context of what is reality. Yeah. And in the Vedic worldview, we see reality being expressed through many layers. And so we have, so let's just take water. So water can be ice, which is the densest form of water. Yeah. Water can be water, which is less dense than ice, but still fairly dense because I can tangibly, quantifiably see water. Water can be steam, which means I can still see steam, but it's less dense than water. And water, let's just call it H2O. H2O can be ice, it can be water, it can be steam, but it can also be vapor, and vapor is unseeable.
What's the difference between steam and vapor?
So when water is going from a puddle to a cloud, the transition from the puddle to the cloud means it has to actually move from the puddle to the cloud. Right. And we don't see that movement of the water going from the, that's vapor, right? So it's unseeable. And that's like spirituality. So we have a physicality. Yeah. We have an emotionality. So that's our physical feeling body. That's our emotions. We have a mentality. That's our mind.
Wait. I think I would, sorry to interrupt, but we have a physicality, but we have a mental body and an emotional body as well. If I'm touching my meat suit as a guest mentioned. So there are three sort of, emotionality and
mentality, emotions, mental, emotional,
and physicality.
And physicals. But we also have spiritual. So that's our fourth layer of reality. Now it's formlessness. So spirituality is the formlessness, the timelessness, the eternality, the permanence. And we identify our most densest aspect of ourselves more than anything, which is our physical, then our emotional, what we feel, and then our mental, what we kind of think. But what most of the world is ignoring at this stage, because it's just not that very obvious or very easy to find, and that's our spirituality. And that's the realm of being or presence or existence beyond the physical, mental, and emotional body. And that's why the transcending meditations are so important, because we need to be able to access that.
I'm going to take that spirituality and bring it down to the earth now, okay? Because spirituality means a lot of things. It's just not an upper layer. Let's say that I'll use spiritual as an adjective, okay? And I have 10 friends and I see what they do every day and I see how they act. All right, I interrupted you because I thought that the spirituality side to our life was being, put up way, way high. And I wanted you, if you could, address the idea of a spiritual being, a person acting spiritually at a day-to-day level when they encounter people, when they do certain things. Is this a possibility for you?
I would shift the terminology slightly. I would, rather than determining whether someone's acting spiritually, I would assess whether they're acting consciously. Okay. But what we could assess is, are they having a spiritual experience as well as a physical, mental, and emotional experience? Okay. So what we want to have is a whole, because you might look at someone like, let's just say Russell Brand. Now I watched Russell Brand on stage, and that man is,
I don't even know who that is. Who is
he's
Russell
an English. Russell Brand is a very, very well established actor and known, I guess, thought leader in the world today. He's got a very large podcast.
Okay, I will have to go look him up. Go ahead, thank you.
And so he's very flamboyant and extroverted and expressive, and he's kind of a bit of a wild man, but he's also very, very spiritual. And he has a very spiritual relationship with life itself. Now, if I was to look at him from an observer that doesn't understand anything about Russell Brand, just watched him on stage, you wouldn't be able to assess whether he's acting spiritually. I don't think we can make that assumption of someone. We could ask whether he's acting consciously.
Is he an actor? What does he do?
He's a speaker, comedian, an actor, and a podcast host. Yeah.
Okay, so
he's very has a very developed meditation practice and very spiritual practice. Yeah,
I see. No, I was thinking more in terms of how people interact, how they, they think of the way they think, like you're saying, consciously, when they want to approach another person in love. Because when we talk of spirituality, to me, that's on a par of unconditional love. And that, to me, can be brought down to earth, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. You know, even it's so easy for us to, as humans, have a perception or an idea about someone based upon the way they're behaving and make judgment on that. And I always come back to Jesus Christ, who without doubt was one person who walked the planet that really embodied unconditional love. Yet he flipped tables. He was pretty pissed at times with the way things were being done.
Angry.
So someone might say, well, he's definitely not in unconditional love because he gets angry. But sometimes that wrath can be actually inspired by love as well.
Right.
So it's very hard for us to observe someone in a particular moment and have an idea as to whether they're spiritual or not. I don't think it's up to us to really make that decision. I think it's really up to each individual to determine whether you're having some access to your own spiritual reality or not.
Having mentioned Jesus Christ, let's get down to the notion of God, a God, the God. So many people, I'm a psychic medium, so and on my YouTube channel, I often channel spirits past, and many of the questions that come in from people who are with me live ask about God. Does God exist? What is God? And, you know, it's a difficult question to broach, especially in an interview of this kind. What do you think? Would you be willing to touch it?
Of course, yeah. It's such a beautiful discussion. I grew up with a very strong Catholic upbringing. Every room in our house has a crucifix with Jesus on it. We have wonderful images of Mary around the house. And I went to church every week. We did grace before dinner every night, and we did the rosary during Lent. So I had a very strong relationship with Jesus and with God as a child. I embraced my own personal prayer a lot.
There was never any crisis about that at all in your life?
Crisis
in terms of a religious questioning?
No, it was always validated through my own personal experience as a child. I had prayers responded to a lot that really deepened my faith in God and God's existence. So I think it's one of those things, it's a very personal journey for people. And I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it comes down to partly your possible environment that you're brought into, that there was just an innate sense of faith within the house. But that was something that I really let go of for quite a long time. For 10 years, I really dropped all spirituality. I dropped all religious relationship and practices. And that was in my 20s. And that was actually when I had my darkest times in my life. Now, the full circle sort of went when I came out of that dark period of my life in my 20s. And I found meditation. And when I found meditation and the ability to transcend and actually then access, let's just call it, for this point of this conversation, God in the realm of transcendence. And some will call that spirituality, some will call that divinity. We can call it the higher self or the supreme being, a number of different things. But it was like, oh, this is not a concept anymore. This is an experience. And so for me, being able to transcend physical, mental, and emotional identity and vehicle is a really important part of our union and communion with God, I think.
So you very, very interestingly circled the topic without giving me a direct answer. So I'm going to call
that's why you're here,
that.
to try and rein me back in. What's the question? And I'll answer.
All right. Well, the question is, your reply was God is an experience. Is that correct? Am I getting that right? Okay. Right, So imagine that people are listening to you, which they are, and they're scratching their head now. What does he mean as an experience? Of course, the experience of transcending, but then that means there is no God. It is an experience that you yourself have, which is a physical, mental, and emotional experience. Those are the only, a soul incarnates to have experiences and deal with emotions. But in that sense, in pointing to God, it changes the way religion, most established religions, institutionalized religions, point to God and represent God. So I'm not seeing your Catholic religious background. Of course, I understand the route was quite meandering to where you are today, but we're still scratching our head about then what is God? You know,
I guess if I had this incredible discussion with a taxi driver once.
It was a long trip.
It was a fascinating trip. He actually stopped and we paused for about half an hour at the end of the journey.
Okay.
And it was around the idea of an omnipresent God, because he believed in a God that was a supreme being that he prayed to as a poorly sort of human, and hopefully that God will help him in some way, shape or form. He was of a particular religion, which I won't share at the moment, but it's irrelevant really. It's just the idea that he was separate from God. And I said, but do you subscribe to the idea of an omnipresent God? Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, God must be omnipresent. And so, well, if God is omnipresent, then God must include you, because exclusion of you in the idea of omnipresence means that it's not omnipresence. So when we subscribe to the idea of an omnipresent, omnipotent, that's all powerful, and omniscient, all knowing God, and omnipresent, which must include you, it's just that there's a part of you that is yet to realize that. And in our evolutionary phase, our evolutionary sequence that we're in, as currently a few steps along from an amoeba or a bacteria or a fungi, I just so happen at this point in time in the evolutionary cycle of realizing my omnipresence and omnipotence and omniscience, that most of my time I'm identifying with my human experience, which is my emotional, mental, and physical. However, as we start to develop our ability to transcend and become one with that omnipresent God and be realized in that omnipresence, then we start to have a godlike experience.
Okay, a godlike experience. Is it, based on what you said, can I say, since God is omnipresent, we have God in us.
Through us. In us.
Through us.
Yeah.
Through us, in us, and around us. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Mr. Cronin. Now let's get on to the good stuff. Your books. When did your first book come out?
I think the first book I wrote was The Path to Peace.
He said, I think the first book I wrote. There's a memory problem here.
Yeah, definitely. It was a long time ago.
Okay.
And I live a lot in the now, so things that happened even yesterday I find kind of blurry.
So do you remember more or less when that could have been?
It was about 8 years ago, and it was a book called Path to Peace.
Sorry?
And it's about,
say it again,
it's called
please?
Path to Peace.
Path to Peace, okay. And
it explores the dynamics of evolution and how these three forces of evolution play out at any given time in our life. And when we can start to identify which force is currently playing out in our life, we can move through that process. And that's the destructive, the maintenance, and the creation force. Okay.
And so now we're on book number 2. Try to focus. What book is that? Could you remember the title?
Yeah, I wrote a book after that one called Spirit and Soul, which is exploring the 7 states of consciousness.
Good. Now, this is a man after my own heart. So Spirit and Soul, is that the title? Yeah. What brought you to write about that? Because you wanted to share consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to share with the world an insight that I discovered that was very illuminating for me. That is that there has in each and every human the potential and possibility to experience 7 states of consciousness. And the cause of most of our suffering is that we are ignoring or limiting our ability to experience these very advanced states of consciousness, which are cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, and unity consciousness.
Okay, so we got book number 2. Moving forward in time. So more or less, we have about a year, every 14 months, a book comes out, if you're talking about 8 years ago, right? So then?
I wrote a book called, with my wife in collaboration, called Missy Moo Meditates. And it was a children's book.
What is
Missy
it?
Moo
Missy Moo, it's a children's book, I see.
Yeah. And it's about Missy Moo and her sister Boo, and Missy Moo is teaching her sister Boo how to meditate.
How cute. That's cute. Nice. Then we have book number 4.
I wrote a book called Faster, Deeper Sleep, which was a book which is really a self-help guide on how to
faster, deeper sleep.
Yeah, which is just strategies and systems that I use to overcome insomnia that I've put into a book.
Okay, and then I think we're at the last one, aren't we? Or no?
A couple more. We got Faster, Deeper Calm, which is a book on overcoming
Faster, Deeper Calm. Okay.
Yeah, overcoming anxiety. So how to reduce anxiety and panic in your life without using medication. And then the final one is The Portal, which came out with a film.
Okay. Now, when you first wrote The Portal, what was your intention? Was it to talk about these 6 people? What was
the intention?
Yeah, go
ahead.
The
intention was actually to make the film. That was the starting point. I wanted to sort of follow in the footsteps of The Secret and make a film that was a very powerful 90-minute expose into the power of meditation. It was beautiful with nice music and nice storytelling and emotional experiences. And in the book, we extracted from the transcripts of the interviews from the film. So we'd made the film first, and then we took the transcripts, and then we compiled those transcripts with some additional insights from Jackie, the director, and myself, who co-created the film together.
So this came out when?
That was in 2019.
Okay, 2019. And with that, I can say, I will include this links to your social media in the description of this video or audio episode. And the Renaissance man, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Cronin, thank you so much for joining us. I hope to have you back.
What a delightful conversation. Thank you.
Don't go away. I want to talk to you. And I will I do hope if there's another book number 7, we can again talk. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for having me.